The following program was provided by an independent producer solely responsible for its content. The opinions expressed do not necessarily represent the views of this station, its staff, board of directors, or underwriters.
Don't adjust your screen. There is nothing wrong. You're about to enter a world where the very concept of time is rendered obsolete by the sheer power of entertainment. You're about to enter the Boggis Hour. Of the Boggis Hour, Greg Boggis!
Hey, I'm Greg Boggis, and this is my TV show, The Boggis Hour. I have two special guests on. First one is an actor, writer, director, and cosplayer named Kevin Barrett. The second one is a magician and author named Andrew Pinard. Stay tuned for The Boggis Hour. Here I am with Kevin Barrett, writer, director, actor, cosplayer, New Hampshire guy.
Yes.
And, of course, you're wearing the
skipper outfit.
Skipper from Gilligan's Island.
From Gilligan's Island, yes. That was in honor of Don Wells, who was at Granite State Comic-Con this past summer. Great little convention we have here in Manchester, put on by Double Midnight Comics every year. She was the guest of honor. And so I thought, perfect time to wear a skipper outfit and get a picture taken and stuff. It was a lot of fun. Yeah.
Was that the first time you'd donned the skipper costume?
The first time I did the skipper costume, yes. Yeah. I've done a few other ones before, from time to time, but that was my first skipper one.
And you look quite good as the skipper.
Thanks. I do have the build for it, but
yeah, no, it's very much
age
about
and stuff.
You got the whole kind of package.
You're right. Yeah, it seemed like it was a good choice for me, you know.
And Don Wells is no spring chicken.
She's no spring chicken, but she's still pretty
very nice looking lady.
Very nice looking lady, and very fun, and she was very friendly. And because she gave a talk that was, she gave a little talk.
Oh, did she?
Yeah, and talked about the show and all that kind of stuff. And she was very friendly with everybody. And there was one guy who was asking questions who was a little tad creepy, maybe. It was like some of us in the audience were like, do we need to make this guy sit down? He was, but he managed to control himself, and she was very nice to him, very sweet. And it was fun.
Well, that's one of the time-tested questions of people who grew up in the world of television is
yes.
Marianne or Ginger.
Yes, she even has a T-shirt that has the two check boxes, and of course Marianne is checked off. That's one of the things she sells. Because whoever picked Ginger? I mean, everybody went Marianne, right?
Yeah,
I mean, I don't know anybody. She's too high maintenance, so of course he went Marianne.
The lady from the heartland.
Yes, the girl next door.
Right.
Yes.
So that was your first time doing the skipper. That
was the first time doing skipper. Yeah.
And when did you find interest in doing what we now know as cosplay?
Well, way back in the ancient days of the 80s, I used to take part in a lot of conventions, used to put together role-playing games and stuff, and we used to involve some costuming, and that was even before what is now known as LARPing.
Which is live action
role-playing. Exactly, and that tends to be foam swords and lots of armors and that kind of thing, but back in our day, it was more about, setting up, strategy games, and people would come in and play the roles, and we would use the hotel or whatever place we were at as part of the scenario and everything.
And what were those games, like Dungeons and Dragons type of things?
Well,
or was it
only in the sense that we had similar type of rules, but we created our own game completely, and we would come up with our own rule sets and things like that. And because we couldn't really do dice rolls standing in a hotel corridor, and we had to have ways for people to be independent and have things come out fairly without a game master standing there rolling the dice. So
that was the real early days of that stuff,
yes,
right?
that was
it's become a cottage, not a cottage industry. It's become big industry.
Yes, yeah, and even like cosplaying now is getting very big because Joann's Fabric is apparently going to start carrying cosplay material now.
No kidding.
So it's becoming kind of mainstream.
Wow.
But it's mostly younger ladies, so creepy old guys like me get into it, and it's like, what is he doing here? But it's fun. I like it. It's creative, and it's and it's
Yeah,
a fun
I find
community.
it's basically one wing of like the Halloween genre, where the haunters have created this whole avenue of entertainment and art where they're able to express their creativity, and then that the cosplay thing is for a lot of people, it's just about expressing their interest in pop culture, showbiz, and
right.
movies and films.
And showing creativity in the crafting. I mean, this obviously, there was no crafting involved here. I bought a hat and a shirt. And the nice thing is, I take this off, I'm not in costume anymore, I'm just hanging around the convention hall. Whereas some of the other ones that I've done, it's a little bit more elaborate.
Yeah, it's amazing, pretty amazing, just some of the amount of effort and energy that goes into people's costumes. And,
Yes.
some people, they find their character and they create
Right.
this, almost a spot-on image,
Yep.
physical image of what that cartoon or movie or book
Right.
character is. It's
And
really
and some are really amazing. There was one guy that had this thing. He must have been 10 feet tall in the whole outfit, and it was this big robot character from Invader Zim, a cartoon. I'm probably not familiar with, but a great show. But and he had the voice box and everything, so we could talk to people, and it lit up and everything, and it was amazing. And the amount of work, he needed like 2 or 3 people around him to make sure that he didn't like fall down or step on people, and to get up and sit, stand up and sit down and things like that.
it's fun to see some of those really large.
Yes.
There's a couple of, I've seen the Hulk and the Thing.
Yes, yeah, they're huge, and they've got
massive
people
costumes.
hovering around them, helping them along. It's like, and those are really awesome. But I'm leaning more towards the more practical things like this. And my son and I went to San Diego Comic-Con last year.
That's the big one, right?
That's the big one. Like when on Big Bang
100,000
Theory.
people or
Oh
something.
yeah, it's way even more than that. I think it was 130 or more.
Wow.
But when they mention Comic-Con on Big Bang Theory, they mean San Diego Comic-Con, and we went as space janitors. Which is a web series on
Really?
it's on the Nerdist channel, is one of the places you can find it. Chris Hardwick's website. But it's kind of a parody of Star Wars as told from the point of view of 2 of the guys who have to clean up the Death Star. And it's very funny, really well done. And they have the 2 main characters are a tall, thin guy like my son and his friend who's not tall or thin like me. So, but they just wear blue jumpsuits with patches on them. So that's what we did. We got blue jumpsuits, and I made up a patch to stick on them, and we had our costume for the weekend.
go.
And it was easy, and we could just walk around in it. And, it was a little warm being in San Diego in a
Right.
wool jumpsuit, but other than that, it was fine.
Cool. So we've talked about that
Yes.
cosplay. You're also a writer and an actor, and you do theater.
I do a lot of theater. I work with the Majestic Theater in Manchester a lot. We do a lot of directing down there, 2-3 shows a year usually.
Now, is there an actual Majestic Theater, or is that a troupe that farms out to
It's
other
a
venues?
troupe. We would love to have our own theater. So if there's any angels out there with lots of money, please contact the Majestic Theater. But we're kind of actually, always looking for space. Right now, we do our dinner theaters at the Executive Court in Manchester, down by the Yard Restaurant, and we do summer shows at the Derry Opera House.
Oh, okay.
And so that's kind of our 2 main venues right now. So, and the offices are in downtown Manchester.
Right.
They just took over the Ted Herbert Music School, which is really cool because now we got this great pool of teachers and performers and stuff like that. It can really hopefully expand stuff. And
Awesome.
yeah, so.
So you've written.
And I've written some plays. I wrote a play that was produced by the Community Players of Concord back in 2003.
Title?
Targets. And won the very first New Hampshire Theater Award for Best Original Drama.
An award winner right here.
Yeah, award winner right here. That's right. That was quite a lot of fun doing that show. And I've got another play which is part of a triptych, fancy word for trilogy, that I'm working on. I had a stage reading put on by the Milford area players.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Which was great to be able to see it and hear it and stuff to some extent. And I'm working on that. I'm also working on some fiction. I've got a fantasy novel I'm trying to put together and other stuff.
So you get multiple irons and
Multiple irons,
fires,
yes.
which seems to be what you have to do in a lot of showbiz, unless you land the big role. You got to have
exactly.
a number of different things that keeps you entertained and keeps a little bit of revenue coming in.
Yeah, well, not that I've seen any revenue from any of that yet, but it's stuff is in there and I got to do something with it. So I may as well try to keep it somewhat focused. So I'm not just wasting my time, but try to finish things. But yeah, I'd like to try to do different stuff.
Cool. And in the future, where can we find you?
In the future, in the very near future, we'll be at the Hatbox Theater. I'll still be working with the Majestic Theater, but we're also, along with your next guest, Andrew Pinard, we're starting up this small, intimate performance space in Concord, New Hampshire, called the Hatbox Theater. And we're looking to have plays in there. We want to have readings of plays and poetry and music and stand-up comedy.
Hey, perhaps,
and, yes, and music. Where we've got a show lined up. We've got a play lined up for the first couple weekends of April called Two Across, put on by Lend Me a Theater. We've got 2 rock bands coming in April 23rd. Third Degree from out of New Jersey and Mavara, local progressive rock band. The members are from Iran, and they came here to escape that, and to play their music and stuff like that, and they're awesome, and so is Third Degree. And you're going to be hosting a comedy night for us on the 22nd of April.
Yeah.
And I'm going to be directing a play called Screenplay by A.R. Gurney, which is, it's the actors' stand-up music stands, and they're reading the screenplay of a movie that was too dangerous to produce. And it's a very funny political satire, and it's the idea is that it's set about supposedly 15 years in the future, and it's a very Republican future as told by disgruntled Democrats. So it's very funny. I mean, it's kind of aimed at Republicans, but it's so absurd that it shows the absurdity of, the other side as well. I mean, it's just very funny. Politics, it's just
always good for a laugh.
And it's also structured, it's basically a takeoff on Casablanca.
Oh, okay.
And takes place in Buffalo, New York.
Great.
So it's a great show, yeah.
Well, Skipper,
yes.
Kevin Barrett, thanks for coming on the Boggis Hour. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
We'll have you on again.
Thanks for having me.
Next time you create some new costumes, let me know.
Sure, I will.
We'll have you back.
All right, cool.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
There's a shelter pet who wants to meet you. Meet one today. Visit theshelterpetproject.org. Adopt.
I'm here with magician Andrew Pinard, Andrew J. Pinard. Welcome to the Boggis Hour.
Thanks for having me.
So we'll get right to the nitty-gritty. Tell me about your career as a magician.
Well, I prefer the term perceptual engineer.
Okay.
It pays better. Anytime you have that extra set of letters on the end. I got into magic almost by accident. I did it as a kid in the 2nd grade. I gave my first show, a little bit of mind reading actually. But I got out of it in 5th grade when I started studying music and theater, and it wasn't until after I got out of college that I kind of fell back into magic. I had been studying music to become a music teacher, and I ended up teaching theater at Pembroke Academy for 5 years. And while I was teaching theater, I came across a book that had a prop that I had when I was a kid, and all of a sudden it kind of kicked back in. And so I spent probably 2 years, probably 8 to 10 hours a day studying magic and practicing magic and learning magic, and actually ended up opening a magic shop here in Nashua at 58 Elm Street. And we were here in Nashua for 4 years, and then when I moved out to the woods, I moved the shop out there as well. So, but I've been doing it ever since.
So growing up, did you imagine that you'd be a magician?
Had no dreams, no desires, no interest whatsoever in doing this. Mainly I did theater. I was really interested in traveling and performing. That's,
Yep.
I love being up on stage and interacting with an audience and kind of seeing where things go. And what I like about magic, or what really attracted me, was it kind of revealed how people see the world and how easily manipulated we can be. And so, I took to that. I like the cleverness and the idea of things happening behind the scenes that aren't what the audience experience. It's almost like there's a dual reality of what's actually happening going on. And then after a while, it really, for me, it got to be almost like, when I was acting, I used to act in college. It was
Yep.
one of the things I did. I always thought of acting as reacting, where you're kind of this person sitting on the shoulder of the character that you're portraying, and you're manipulating them like a puppet. But I eventually realized that it really is more about releasing the character. And so when I perform magic, it's not about me thinking about the tricks. It's not about thinking about, it's being open to the possibilities that are in front of us and being able to play off of the audience that's there. Kind of like surfing, if you're fighting the audience, you're going to get nowhere. But if you sit there and you kind of react to exactly what's going on with where they want to go, you're going to have a better experience. They're going to have a better experience. And at the end of the day, they're going to have a great story that they can go and share with other people.
Is there any time when you're performing that you almost feel out of yourself? Do you ever get that kind of I don't want to call it a high, but that kind of an experience where it's almost like it's not even you that's running the car?
I think athletes talk about it as being in the zone. You're at a point where you lose a sense of self. The first time I experienced that wasn't as a magician. When I was in college, I was doing a play with 4 actors on stage, and we had I was on stage for 20 minutes with one other actor before the other actors came on stage. And we were just small talk and setting the scene of what was going on. And I remember standing in the wings and about to go on stage. And then I remember walking off the set when I was supposed to leave the set, and I had no memory of what had happened. And the actors who were waiting to come in were like, "What happened to you? Where'd you go?" I was like, "What do you mean? I was there, I did the stuff." "Well, but you were only the character. You as the performer didn't exist anymore." And that's something that, really struck me then, and I aim for with every performance. I try to throw myself into it to a point where I don't know what happened during the show. And that happens now more often than not. And I wouldn't necessarily, doesn't mean that it's a good show, but I think the best shows that I have are when I throw myself completely to the experience, and so I'm living the moment at the same time as the audience is.
So you've got a number of different types of shows that you do. Mm-hmm. One thing it's called, is it close-up magic?
Yeah, there's sleight of hand magic, which is often done with small groups of people. So close-up is how we refer to it in the trade.
In a restaurant, kind of going right to people's, literally right in their face.
Oh yeah, I did restaurant and bar magic for almost 15 years. In fact, I performed just north of Nashua and Merrimack when Newick Seafood Restaurant was there. I was there for 11 years, twice a week. Wow. And so I had thousands of people. I still get people. I haven't been there since 2008 when they closed the doors there. I still get people who come up to me. I did a show at the Girls Inc. here in Nashua just last week, and they were like, "My mom remembers you from the..." So, that's where you really get to be as close with people. And a lot of people think the closer they are to a magician, the easier it would be to spot what's going on. But the reality is that your field of vision, when you're up close, is much narrower. And so you can actually, because you have that personal interaction, the barriers start breaking down, and they really find themselves swept up in the moment much more than they would if they're just passively sitting back in the auditorium and looking and I wonder what's going to happen. When you're there and talking to somebody, they lose the boundaries that they might have in a more formal theater setting.
So most people want to be entertained and have a good time. However, there always seems to be, not always, but there often seems to be people that are set upon putting their own impact on the show by literally saying, "Hey, wait a second," trying to, essentially throw water. It's like Teddy Bergeron, the comedian, used to talk about the Peter Pan play. Yeah. As Peter Pan would come swinging down, he's on a wire. Yeah. So how do you deal with? I guess that's the magician's heckler.
Well, I think it's about guilt. It's about being self-conscious. And I think that doesn't matter whether you're doing magic, whether you're doing theater, whether you're doing comedy. If you're self-conscious, the audience is aware of it, and they will smell it like blood in the water, and they'll be on you. The audience wants you to be confident and in charge when you go out, and they know what you're doing, and they want you to do well. Does it happen? Yeah. I remember I used to perform in a restaurant in Peterborough, and the first night I went in, I had this woman at the bar. I started to do some magic, and I walked over, hey, would you like to see something strange and unusual? She looked at me first a little strangely, and when she understood what I was asking, she said, no, I'm not the type that really is interested in magic. It's too intense for me, and I just feel like it's revealing how stupid I am. And my point for her, I graciously said, I understand exactly what you're talking about. Never mind, I'll go and perform for other people. You watch from afar, and hopefully you get some enjoyment. And a couple of weeks went by, and she waved me over and said, you know what? Would you perform something for me? And it was because of the approach. If you get up there and you act like you know more than them, and I think Jerry Seinfeld said it, look, I pulled a quarter from your ear, you're an idiot. If you take that approach, what do you expect with antagonism? But I've always taken, and I lecture to magicians about this, I have a lecture called The Shared Experience. It's all about, unlike other performance arts where you get up and you tell a story and the audience is passive in it, whether it's in music or in dance or even in paintings, you're telling a story and the audience job is to be passive and sit there. Yeah. In magic, I'm creating a story in which you're all participants. And so by being involved, they're invested in the process. And if I recognize that they're valuable, in fact, I've taken to ending I do a formal sleight of hand show called Discovering Magic, which I've done monthly up in Concord at Red River Theaters. I've done 16 performances of it in a small 75 seats space in Portsmouth called the Players Ring. Yep. And if you treat the audience like they're just there to witness something, you've got to expect that type of reaction. But if your goal is to go out there and engage them as much as possible in what's going on, and to give them room, that's the other thing. I think a lot of magicians, it's funny, I don't watch a lot of magicians, but a lot of magicians have a tendency to, this is what I'm going to do, this is what's happened, this is what happened, didn't you like what I did, kind of a thing, which doesn't leave the audience any room. And I'm a big fan of ambiguity, because an audience, you can fool an audience much more strongly, more profoundly, if you let them understand the setting and make up their own conclusions, so that when you get to that point where you reveal something has happened, they go, there's no way. I knew he was going to do that, and there was no possible way for it. You let them come up with the explanations than rather try to force them down a particular path. Yeah, that seems to me one of the great things about magic is that it really is this, a two-party thing. Like you said, a lot of performances kind of, not like you said, the audience is passive, and this is there's always the risk of having to come up or having to actually interact with the person, right? And so you are challenging the audience to be a little bit more than just an audience member. And there's a pitfall in that, because there are people who just don't like to go up on stage. Right. There are people who are like, you know what? I'm happy to sit in the dark and enjoy watching what you please. Don't involve me. At no point do you ever involve me. That's the contract they come with. So, I try, when I promote my shows, I try to promote the experience as much as possible so people know what to expect. I'm also very respectful of audiences, so that if I get somebody up there, I just did a series of shows over the Franklin Opera House, and I had a girl who came up on stage who was really into it at first, and then she realized what was involved at this contract. All of a sudden, I'm on stage and I've got 250 people staring at me. She freaked out a little bit, and you don't just keep her up there. You let her down. You say, hey, you did an awesome job. Thanks for helping out. That's the goal. But there are lots of people who, I think, it doesn't matter whether it's magic or acting or whatever. They go into it for whether it's therapeutic reasons, whether they want to feel powerful, whether they go into it for the wrong reason. They're not there to play with the audience and give the audience a great time. They're there for their egos. They're there for whatever. And I've never been interested in that. Nice. So I reached the end of the conversation part, so we're gonna gonna thank my friend Andrew J. Pinard. Thank you so much. Wonderful magician, great guy, and we're gonna have you do a little bit of I'm going to do a little bit of magic for your audience at home so they'll be able to actually see what close-up magic really looks like.
So that was the talk part, and now comes the tell part, the show part.
Excellent.
So thanks for coming on, and hope
Thanks
to
so
have you
much
on
for
again.
having me. Appreciate it. Jinx.
So we had the nice discussion. Now it's time for the actual magic. So I'm going to turn the stage and the camera over to my good friend Andrew J. Pinard and his magic.
Thank you very much. I want to show you something unusual that uses some bottle caps. These are the old-fashioned bottle caps. These are the old ones, the ones that have the cork on the inside. The cork doesn't do anything, but it's what they use to keep the fluid in the bottles before they had plastic. This goes by very quickly, so watch carefully. They travel one at a time just like that. I'm going to have it travel again from this side over to here, just like that. They travel quicker than you can actually even conceive of. And I know it can be a little perplexing the more you look at it, but I'll try one last time. As you can see, they all kind of assemble leading there. Now I'm going to teach your audience how to do this. No, not really, but it sounds good. It's all in your thumbs. See, if I come down like this, I kick with my thumb, it slides over.
Okay.
Now, you might not have noticed that before because you were watching over here when I did it. If you're watching over here, what happens is I do it under my arm, and that's what we call in the shade. Now, that explains how it gets here, but it doesn't explain how it gets back, or how it ends up over here, or over here, or over here. Ooh, went too quick that time. It's all right. Would you do me a favor, Greg? Would you assume the IRS position? That's good. Yeah, turn your hand palm down if you would. I want you to put your hand on top of those three just like that because it travels from here to there. Lift right up. As you can see, 1, 2, 3, 4 bottle caps. And in fact, I tell you what, Greg, you get to keep those as a souvenir. Just kidding. He doesn't get to keep them. Now, we got one other piece I'd like to show you here in just a moment, but I have to grab a little bit of lace.
Okay. We can make you disappear.
So I want to show you something a little bit different now.
Okay.
This actually piece of magic is well over 400 years old. Some of the oldest magic is still some of the best magic. This uses a piece of lace. As you can see, it's all just one long piece of 3/4-inch tape. Now, if somebody wanted to steal this ribbon, it would be very easy to just grab one end and pull it out of my pocket. That's why if I take it and I tie a little knot like this, it makes it nice and tight, and I can loop it around my wallet or things of that nature in my pocket. Okay, as you can see, that's pretty tight. You can see the knots on there. It's not actually, it's completely a fake knot. That's why we did that, to see if you would catch it. So I tell you what, I'm going to tie it one more time, just nice and tight like this, and I'm going to ask you to do the same thing. Would you tie that knot once more?
Okay.
And then tie it once more again. That way you know that that's a legitimate knot.
And twice.
Perfect. Now I got a pair of scissors here for you because I figure you're probably not carrying your own.
I am not.
Now, this again, we could loop it like this. If I take the and I double it over like that, we now have 2 loops. You see how we have 2 loops there? If we were to double it one more time, then we have 4 loops. And I'm going to ask you to do me a favor. I would like you to actually cut through either this side of the knot or that side of the knot. It's up to you.
All right, I'll go on that side.
Excellent choice. So now, once you cut that, you see we have how many pieces? 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4 ends. Here, why don't you cut that knot off there as well?
Here?
No, the other side.
Oh, okay.
There you go. So we can cut the knot off and get rid of that knot. In fact, I tell you what, I'll take the scissors because we might as well get rid of this end here. Might as well get rid of this end here. Might as well get rid of this end here. We can continue cutting these ends until there's almost no knots here to even look at, you know. And by doing this again and again and again, of course, we have cut this as many times as possible. But if you take one end here and we blow, just like that, that actually all goes right back together again, just like that. And that's a piece of magic that's over 400 years old, and it fools even today.
Very good.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it. Hope your viewers enjoy it. And please check us out online, absomagic.com. You can find out more information about my shows and where I'm performing. And then check out Hatbox Theater. You heard about it earlier in the program. We're opening a little space in Concord, New Hampshire, and we'll have performances of Discovering Magic there the first Wednesday of each month.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Greg.
All righty.
Take care. Bye-bye.
If you or someone you know would like to be a guest on The Boggis Hour, email us here at theboggushour@gmail.com.
The preceding program was provided by an independent producer solely responsible for its content. The opinions expressed do not necessarily represent the views of this station, its staff, board of directors, or underwriters.